Hello and welcome. This is Dawn, and this is another installment of the Who We Are Now series. And today I'll be discussing the threefold nature of life and expanding on that a bit. You may have heard me talk about this in the past as just talking about that core trinity of life, which is light, life, and love, and how they are interrelated and always in relationship with one another, and they are one. As if you want to think of it as a trinity, they're three in one, and they're inseparable, and that is the core of life. But today we're going to talk about the threefold nature of life in a different way. We're going to look at the threefold nature of who we are, and we're going to look at what I refer to, because I haven't come up with a better term, I refer to it as simultaneous singularity, harmonic convergence, and the diamond star you are. So this is kind of the overview of what we're going to look at. So right at the get-go, what I want to say is when you think of that Trinitarian structure, what you want to think of is a triangle and the three lines of a triangle, but you want to collapse that in and or expand it out. And it has dimension and depth as well. And that point at the center is where all things begin and where all things return to. And that, in terms of what we're going to discuss today, is the center point of it's the ground of being. It's our beginning. It's the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, the source of life itself, the source of all things, all that is. And also the point of our knowing of that all there is, and our point of expression of that. Forgive me because it's very difficult for me to put this into words. I see it all visually, so just bear with me with the even though I'm a writer, the words in explaining these concepts is often a little challenging. So if you are looking at the image on screen, I do hope to pretty this up in the future, and it's a bit of a mess with a lot of words on it. So let me walk you through this. So first, picture that triangle. And what I want you to remember, though, I don't think I finished my thought there, is that this Trinitarian nature, and I think of it as a diamond star. The diamond star you are, the diamond star each of us is, and then all of those diamond stars, star is an acronym I use for your soul's truth and radiance, all of those come together to create a reality, a universe, a system of expression that can be continuously formed, reformed, and transformed into realities. So if you imagine that triangle shape, and then it becomes a pyramid, it becomes it becomes a fragment of a diamond, not a pyramid, I'm sorry. And the life force is that single point, which represents the source of our being. It represents life force. It is a singular expression of all that is. It represents that from which we come and that to which we shall return. It represents the one. The one light, the one life, the one love. And from that single point, three lines move out in different directions of time and space. So imagine the emanation coming from that single spark. And from that emanation, there is the soul, the body, and what I've termed the higher self or spirit. Soul, body, spirit, body, soul, body, spirit, soul, body, soul, spirit. However you look at those, they're all expressions of who we are individually. I'm going to keep it to the individual right now. This actually does play out on the collective level as well in a different way. I may address that in a separate video, but to keep it somewhat simpler, we're going to just talk about your body, your spirit or higher self, and your soul. all of which emerge from that singular expression, I would say, of source, or that singular expression of life. Life used broadly there. Life as light, life, and love all working together. Again, another expression of the Trinity, right? Now within, at these 3 points of these three forms of expression, body, soul, spirit, of you, each slightly different, which we'll talk about it in a second, but in each aspect, for example, your soul, there is then a further expression that becomes its own Trinity. I'm not going to go too deeply into that now because it will get far too confusing. But I think of it as, the first time I watched the I think it was called the Mendelbrot series on PBS. I may be pronouncing that incorrectly, but it was the fractal demonstration. And it was like, I knew it right away. Like, that's how we are, but there are many, many expressions within us. And so this is just one way of looking at who we are and our own threefold nature in terms of body, soul, spirit. So the body is the physical expression. It's the expression in physical form, and it is the vehicle for the soul, and it is also can be the spirit can work through the body. So again, each of the 3 aspects are in communication with one another. But the body is the physical expression. Now, that is more than just your physical body, your flesh and blood. It is also your mind and your emotion. So body, heart, mind, emotion, thinking, physical systems, all of that is working together. So that there again is another example of the, if you drew out the triangle there for the body, that would be the 3. So our body, there's an invitation for each expression of who we are. And the invitation for the body is to rise into the realm of radiance and to understand that I am well. To embrace wellness, health, well-being, being well, being I am, seeing ourselves as well, as beginning from that point of health and wellness. And there's a whole nother conversation we could have there, but I'm going to leave that there. And so the primary opportunity is being, and I actually should have started with the soul, but I'm just going to stay with the body since that's where I started, And so the body is in formation, and it is both receiving information and therefore information from its environment, the physical environment that it's in, but also receiving information from the higher self, the spirit, the multidimensional self who looks over the process of the body and the soul, and also is an expression of that single spark life force source. And the body is learning to express in physical form, and to raise up to a higher harmonic in terms of its understanding of itself, and its understanding of itself in relation to the spirit, the higher self, and the soul. And also, ultimately, to strengthen the bond and the relation to its life force, which is source, God, the singular expression of, or one aspect, one singular expression of that. So the soul, let's go to what I drew on the left-hand side of the bottom of the triangle. The body was on the right, just where I drew it. There's no rhyme or reason to which point is which. And the soul's invitation is to remember wholeness and to see, to embrace a whole new way of seeing. The soul is on a journey through time and space, and the soul is all about exploration, and that exploration then leads to a remembrance of our star power, our soul's truth and radiance, and the fullness thereof. And as we make that journey back to sacred wholeness and make that journey to soulful transformation, both happening at the same time along that axis that connects to our source, our life force, that point of singularity and singular expression, which initially I don't think any aspect of us really fully knows. And now, on a deeper level, yes, we always know the soul, and that's why there is in our soul a longing for home, for a return. In our body, there's aches and pains, and there is a remembrance, vague sometimes, at least in my experience, that's been the case, of a connection to fullness, to health, to wellness, to radiance, and the soul is the same. And primarily, in my understanding, the soul is connected to light, the body to life, and the higher self or spirit to love. But I also think those are interchangeable. And I think we're all unique expressions. So the soul is on a journey, and the soul is always has the option or opportunity to be in communion with the body and with the spirit, the higher self. And ultimately, again, to return to the source of its being and to understand itself. And as the body, soul, and spirit, our body, soul, and spirit deepens its understanding of itself, that aspect of who we are, it radiantly expands us, right? Because then we understand that we are more than who we thought we were. We understand the threefold nature of our expression and of our life. We understand that because we are embracing a whole new way of seeing, whole new way of being, and a whole new way of freeing ourselves, that as we are all doing that, all aspects of us are doing that, we are raised up. Like that's where the dimensionality comes into play. And we begin to understand we are a multi-dimensional being in and of ourselves. And if you look at the diagram, you see these little lines going out from body, soul, and spirit in all directions, like an echo. And that's because this is happening. These expressions of who we are is actually happening in multiple dimensions, in addition to the multiple expressions or the variations of expressions through these three aspects of body, soul, and spirit. So the soul, again, can be in communion with the higher self, and that sort of higher perspective of through time and space, and also through all the dimensions of experience of our being, in not just through time in lives and lifetimes, but also through all the various choices that have been made in terms of our these points of singularity and all the realities that we have ever been expressed in or allowed to be expressed through us. And the third aspect is this aspect of what I refer to as spirit, but it's, your higher self that true, some people would call it the true self, the pure, innocent spark of creation that again flows directly from the source of the source within us, is the way that I always have put that in the past. And from your spirit, your higher self that sort of has access to all of the, for lack of a better word, memories that perhaps your soul remembers some of, but not all of, because your soul, again, it's your soul's on a journey back to sacred wholeness and fullness and to soulful transformation. And so it too is growing is one way to put it. And a lot of people do refer to it as soul growth, and I've certainly referred to it that way before as well. But it's more than growth. It is a return, a flowering, a full flowering of the soul. And so the higher self, the spirit, is in communication with the body and the soul. And ideally remains connected to source. But I think in all three cases, the body, soul, and spirit can become disconnected from source, from our life force, from the true nature of reality, from this singular expression, from even understanding, and not just mentally, but in the fullness of that experience, knowing. We can become disconnected from really knowing who we are. And so the higher self or the spirit is all about expansion, radiant expansion. And I have at times thought of the higher self as, the one that's rooting me on. And I don't really get my higher self sometimes, but I don't have to, because I know that there is some aspect of me, my spiritual nature, that sees and that knows and that can be and is in the process of continually choosing to be freedom. And that is ultimately about expansion for all. And so I'm reminded of like the Three Musketeers and the one for all and all for one. And that is the ideal state of each of these aspects of ourself in this sort of threefold nature of who we are. And when I mentioned simultaneous singularity, so not only is there that one stream of life that comes in to this reality, we are born of, I call it God, but life, universe, source. There's also, from these lines that come out from that moment, that spark of creation, into spirit, soul, body, soul, spirit, soul, body, spirit. Those three emanations then also become unique expressions that then also send out, signals from each one of them. So even though I tie the words exploration, expression, and expansion to those three aspects of soul, body, spirit, soul, exploration, body, expression, and spiritual or higher self, expansion, those three are also interchangeable and always moving along these lines, moving and moving back and forth among all of the lines. And that exchange of information, energetic information, is always changing the nature, the balance, and what we're doing is, coming into a place of being informed, and therefore coming into a particular formation that is a harmonic convergence and a rising into the realm of radiance. And normally I have thought about that in terms of the collective, but it works on the individual level too. And as we move closer to the center in terms of our body and physical expression, in terms of our soul and our deepening journey, and that return to wholeness, and that soulful transformation. And as we do the same thing in terms of our spirit and expand and free ourselves and become the witness. Also, that's a part of the higher self, is to bear witness, to be the witness, and to allow. And there's an allowing and articulation and assimilation that's happening on these lines as well. That is also all playing out at the same time. And as all of these things we progress and we grow. And actually, it's not just growth, it is the seven wonders of the soul of faith, hope, love, healing, growth, passion, and beauty. Those are also at play within the body. And you can think of that as what has traditionally been referred to as the chakra system, which is also changing. But just for the sake of this explanation, think of that's how the energy centers play out in the body, and those seven wonders, and then the seven wonders of the soul, those get expressed in our journey. And as we are on the way and exploring what it means to be more than just a body, but to be a soul here in human form, and the soul, being something that never leaves us, and actually the body has an aspect of that too, but let's leave that for a different video. The spirit also is on a journey of higher consciousness, and the witness part that I mentioned, as that continues to be expressed, and there is an embodiment, not in physical form, but an anchoring into an embedding of those seven wonders of the soul: faith, hope, love, healing, growth, passion, beauty, as the higher self allows the flow of spirit. And there is an awakening for all three, body, soul, and spirit, an awakening of the worlds within each of those expressions, a flow that begins to happen within, and then between and among, and then a new vision for the nexus of change. As all of that kind of sinks in, and that corresponds to the formation, reformation, and transformation journeys that are happening simultaneously, there is that convergence, which is an emergence of ourselves as one, and immediately an opening into the awareness of that higher consciousness, and the return to a closeness, a return home, and a closeness to the one, the light and the life and the love that is inseparable, and that is who we are. And that is how this happens, how we are able then to really experience ourselves in the vastness of who we are. And this is not only who we are now, it is who we have always been. And this is the nature of life, the threefold nature of life. And when all of this begins to happen and there is that moment of radiant expansion that is not one moment in time, it's on the way, it's all the time, and as we are on the way opens up to meet us, and there is in any moment the opportunity for this experience and the fullness of who we are in those threefold aspects, that greater access of the one light, the one life, the one love, which is in and of itself one. That spiral in the center is so cool to see that, because this is how this whole journey began for me. I used to doodle, and I was in my body was and mind were not well, and my heart for that matter. And while my soul was strong, there was a somewhat of a fragmentation, at least from my experience, and a disconnect there, and the higher self, that would come and go, and it was of course always there. But so my own experience of this whole journey was one where there was connection, disconnection, connection, disconnection. But when I used to doodle years and years ago, 30 years ago actually, and I used to draw backward spirals all the time. And when I first would write in my journal, before I ever used these words, because I didn't know there were people that were, I really didn't. I was just oblivious to the fact that there were people who were committed to a path of spiritual awakening. And I used to write in my journal about the endless pools of soul. And I see now that was accurate, that it's within each one of us. And so the dimensions that we're exploring are not only just out there, as in the galactic and the cosmic dimensions. It's in here, and it is in our body, it is in our soul, it is in the higher self, and at that singular point of being and expression, from there are endless pools of soul that are expanding, that are deep, that are wide, and that are there. I'm referencing a song we used to sing many, many years ago when I was a child, and it comes from my Christian upbringing. Deep and wide, there's a fountain flowing deep and wide, and that is within us. It is around us. It is life itself, and yet, in this endless pools of soul, there is that soul stream that we are. And there is always the opportunity to dive deeper and then to emerge again. So there's the differentiation that happens, and the uniqueness and the expression that is singular. And then there's the universal, and there's the complete emergence and return into that. That does not mean that there is no uniqueness anymore. No, it just means that there's the rainbow, but it's more than a rainbow now. It's in every direction of time and space and beyond time and space. And so I hope that this has made, some sense, and maybe there's something in here that has sparked something for you. And if not, then thank you for listening anyway. And once we go through this process, right, and it's continual, it's repetitive and always deepening and expanding. But this, continual cycle of convergence and then emergence, we emerge and we are changed. So it's continual growth and change and arising. And at the same time, there is the opportunity, as we know ourselves as one with life, and life being comprised of those foundational elements of light, life, and love, there is the opportunity to enter into rest. And rest being the portal of restoration, we are restored. We are restored to the kingdom within, as Jesus would have said and did say, and we are continually restored. And each aspect, those 7 wonders of the soul, are restored in us individually and ultimately collectively if we so choose together. So there is a restoration to faith, to hope, to love, to healing, to growth, to passion, to beauty. And as there is that rest and restoration, after a time, there is again an exploration, an expression, an expansion. There is again the opportunity to really embody and come into the fullness of our physical form, not detach from it. And there is the opportunity to enter into fully, more deeply, more truly, the soul and the exploration and the joy of that journey that is a part of that aspect of who we are. And there is a rising into the spirit and into that higher harmonic of our higher self that has known so many expressions and that so wants to see us be fully expanded into, that fullness, that rainbow self that we are, and to allow ourselves to fly for freedom and to only fly for freedom and to be set free in love and to play through our expressions as body, soul, and spirit with how can I being the body, the soul, the spirit, and I being that singular, unique expression of life, light, and love. How can I bring forward my particular play of light? How can I share my essential story of life? How can I bring forward my grace-filled, unique revolution of love here and now in this moment? And it's a joyful dance that body, soul, spirit, that each aspect of who we are is contributing and creating and coming into communion with each of the aspects, the other 2 aspects. And isn't that something to think about, like the unique ways that will happen because we're all different and are at different places in terms of everything, in terms of our journey, the kind of things that we've chosen, the body we're in, the way that each aspect has chosen to express or experience itself. And ultimately, that's what this is all about, experience. I believe we come to life, to experience life, and then to come fully to our life, to live in full expression. And yet, it's not one expression. It's the expression that each aspect of us individually and the 3 of us together decide to bring forward. And that is always, the continuum of change is, it's again, there's the 3 lines there that each aspect of us connects back to our life force, to source, to the one light and the one life and the one love. And what are we choosing? So I hope that some of that made sense. Like I said, wellness, wholeness, witness. Those are the three W's that are always opportunities and connections that can lead us to be further in communion with the force of life and the expression of life that is running through us, which is creation itself. And I would see, by the way, the circle of recreation as holding all of this. So the circle of creation, we are always, when we are in the process of these forms of expression, we are always in that circle of recreation. And if we can root ourselves in that and remember that we are one with life and an expression, unique expression of life, that is the place to begin.